The Gibeonites avenged. During the reign of David, there was a famine for three successive years. So David sought the face of the Lord. The Lord said, "It is on account of Saul and his blood-stained house. It is because he put the Gibeonites to death." The king summoned the Gibeonites and spoke to them. Excuse me. Now the Gibeonites were not a part of Israel, but were survivors of the Amorites. The Israelites had sworn to spare them, but Saul, in his zeal for Israel and Judah, had tried to annihilate them. David asked the Gibeonites, "What shall I do for you? How shall I make amends so that you will bless the Lord's inheritance?" The Gibeonites answered him, "We have no right to demand silver or gold from Saul or his family, nor do we have the right to put anyone in Israel to death." "What do you want me to do for you?" David asked. They answered the king, "As for the man who destroyed us and plotted against us so that we have been decimated and have no place anywhere in Israel, let seven of his male descendants be given to us to be killed and exposed before the Lord at Gibeah of Saul, the Lord's chosen one." So the king said, "I will give them to you." The king spared Mephibosheth, son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, because of the oath before the Lord between David and Jonathan, son of Saul. But the king took Armani and Mephibosheth, the two sons of Ai's daughter Rizpah, whom she had borne to Saul, together with the five sons of Saul's daughter Merib, whom she had borne to Adriel, son of Barzillai, the Meholathite. He handed them over to the Gibeonites, who killed and exposed them on a hill before the Lord. All seven of them fell together. They were put to death during the first days of the harvest, just as the barley harvest was beginning. So, just a quick pause here. We're technical. Okay. Heard something in the background. So, a quick pause as well for just a reminder that David has just recently lost his son, just recently gained kingship back in over Israel and Judah, and he also had to just recently defeat Sheba, who was trying to yet again rise up in the middle of Israel and rise against another person that was rising against David. So he just went through quite a bit with his own family and with friends, and now the land is going through a time of a famine. So David asked the Lord why, and the Lord told him it's because it is on the account of Saul and his blood-stained house. It is because he put the Gibeonites to death. Now the Gibeonites were part of Israel, but were not part of Israel, but they were survivors of the Amorites, and those that Israel had already made an oath to not go to war with. And so, unfortunately, though, Saul, during his reign, he went after the Gibeonites, and so this is a time where some of his family was still alive, and they probably held grudge. They probably held grudge against David. They probably were still mistreating the Gibeonites, and so the Lord told David, ask the Gibeonites, let the Gibeonites tell you, or basically the Lord just told the reason, about it. And so he went to the Gibeonites and said, "Hey, what can we do to make things right?" And the Gibeonites told him. And so now David has followed through with their request. And so there's a lot here. This is during the time where, again, David was ruling Israel again. he didn't want to let Mephibosheth die because he had made an oath to Jonathan. So Mephibosheth was not one of the people who were handed over to the Gibeonites, but there were others that were handed over. And again, remember, Saul and his children, aside for Jonathan, some of his children were really, they wanted to follow the Lord in their own way. They had the kingship and the rulership kind of to their head, you know? So think about that. Do we do that when we get into leadership roles? Do we get arrogant? Do we get pompous with it? Just things to think about. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel and what does it make you think?